This Choircast podcast is brought to you by the book Drugs and Jesus by Josh Lawson. It's no secret that churches are stumbling in the dark when they look for ways to effectively serve people who use drugs. As the death toll of accidental drug overdose continues to rise across our country at an alarming rate, Christians are struggling to connect their faith with this urgent and holy work. Faith-based activists are attempting to bridge the gap, but so far, their message has been confined to socially progressive circles. Drugs and Jesus takes readers on a journey of theological and practical transformation that will help them learn how to better serve the most vulnerable members of their community, all without having to become experts in the field of addiction or theology.
Forget what they told you in Sunday school. God's not mad at you. You don't have to make America great again. And your spirituality doesn't have to look anything like theirs. Welcome to Evangelicalish with Paul and Ashley. We're untangling and unlearning what harms, reclaiming what heals, and searching for a new kind of 21st century spirituality.
Okay. All right.
Good morning.
Another day that I'm in a new place trying to figure out what the hell I'm doing. But this is it. The new space.
The new space. Okay. I think, first of all, I love the hat with the art because it's like all this fun color. And, I love the art that's behind you because to me it represents the just the beautiful, multiple colored person that you are, multiple hued, creative spirit that you have. So I love that.
Okay.
We're going to work a little bit on your lighting because I think we need to see a little bit brighter you.
How about that?
I mean, not terribly noticeably different, but
Really?
better, a little bit better. So, but anyway.
And I have the issue of I have these beautiful bay windows on the other side of my office, and they make it so that I can't see my screen because it's so bright behind me. But otherwise, it's wonderful.
Well, happy 60th birthday. That is, since we last gathered on this podcast, you turned 60. We redid your office, went on a fun trip with our kids, and here we are back on a Sunday morning-ish.
60 just sounds so effing old.
A six in front of the age is a thing. Like that's
How
a
did I
thing.
get this old is the question.
Yeah. And especially when I think you feel like you're just starting out in so many ways. So
Yeah.
it's just, there's so much sort of like dissonance with the idea that I'm 60 and I'm just beginning my life.
Yeah, it really is. It's like I should be doing this at 25, not 60.
Yeah.
But 60 is the new 25, they say. So I'll live with that.
And also it's like a great testament to like who said you can't start over? Who said you can't spend every day of your life doing deep, hard, and good work and like continue to evolve? I think that is actually a beautiful model and like pattern for how to live your life. So, I think it's exciting.
And thanks to everybody saying happy birthday on Instagram. And it's the one thing I still love about Facebook is I got hundreds and hundreds of happy birthday greetings from people I was very happy to get greetings from and people I didn't give a shit I was getting greetings from and all the
any bots wish you happy birthday by any chance?
I'm sure there were many bots that wish me happy birthday.
Yeah. Fantastic.
So, yeah, I'm sorry we were a little bit late to get on today because I was again trying to make sure everything was working and hadn't had a chance to like work it out. And I got out of bed late because I was tired. So
yeah. But here we are. And I'm grateful to arrive and like have some time to just talk to you and talk to folks who are joining us live in the chat. When I think about what this time means to us every week, I think it's like so multifaceted, but one is, just kind of falling into conversations that we don't really know where they're going to go, but we have kind of some ideas, and then like doing that dance with you and kind of making it up as we as we go through the hour, it has become like a spiritual practice for me. So, you know, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, and we always like it if people who are in the live stream here, if you're listening on audio podcast, you can always join us live on Sunday mornings. And so let us know you're here. Say hi in the chat, and tell us where you're from. For some reason, our stream is not showing up our comment stream is not showing up today. StreamYard is letting us down. So yeah, we have lots of interesting stuff to talk about today. Part of which is we named the show twice this week. Do you want to tell why we did that?
Well, because we couldn't agree on how to frame this conversation. So we were just like, let's just say both things. In our usual, we're getting props for your background art from River Hugger, which is great. In our process for like kind of figuring out, okay, how do we want to host? What do we want to facilitate? What do we want to sort of invite into conversation on a Sunday morning and ish? There were several things going through our minds. Not a surprise, because if you know Paul and Ashley at all, you know that many things go through our minds at all times. And so I had a real fun time playing with like big things that happened this week. Bad Bunny being named as a Super Bowl featured artist for next year, and people on the religious spectrum, religious right, losing their minds. And then Taylor Swift drops her new album.
Yeah.
And I've started to listen to that and like, you know, just kind of enjoying that. Anyway, so I was like, okay, if we were to say, basically, we want to talk about the things that happened in our week. You know, what were the big things that may have broken through in pop culture? Well, it was this Bad Bunny and the Showgirl album dropping. And so I'm like, let's put that together and be like, hey, code 4. We just want to talk about our week along with Bad Bunny and Taylor Swift's new album. And then I thought, I wonder if people would know the difference, like of the two of us, which one is the Bad Bunny and which one is the Showgirl. It is not an obvious conclusion. Like it could be that I'm the Bad Bunny and Paul might be the Showgirl here. So anyway, I was having fun with that. And then in the middle of, you know, talking this through with Paul, kind of at all times, I think the running conversation and conflict that we keep getting drawn back to is just how bad are things, and then what do we do about them? And Paul usually comes in from that perspective of things are, you know, very, very bad. And so your contribution to the title this morning is "The World's on Fire. Can we put it out?" And then I love the Calvin and Hobbes imagery from, you know, our youth.
I love this graphic so much because it's Calvin peeing on the world on fire. My playground 10-year-old is kicking in, going,
yeah, he.
Yeah.
I feel like probably one of your parts is that image right there is probably like, I don't know, is that Johnny? Is that Buck? There's definitely a part of you that is that version of Calvin and Hobbes.
Something like that for sure.
Yeah.
That is fun. So yes, you can tell us in the chat here if you're in the live which title and which graphic you like better.
Yeah. How are you showing up today? Are you excited about Bad Bunny and Showgirl, or are you like, no, the world is on fire and who knows if we can put it out, or all of those things?
If I can start on the Bad Bunny part here. So MAGA losing its shit because Bad Bunny's going to be performing at the Super Bowl. And I can be very honest and say, I'm not sure I've ever heard a Bad Bunny song, although I should say, I'm sure I've heard a Bad Bunny song, but I couldn't tell you what a Bad Bunny song is. But I'm also self-aware enough to know that the Super Bowl halftime show is not about me anymore. The NFL is not trying to capture me. They're trying to capture other people, but we still have people in the world like, I want it to always be about me, and are very upset about Bad Bunny. And something that goes into both of our topics today, this right-wing snarky talker, Tomi Lahren, this week had Crystal Ball. And if you've never seen Crystal Ball before, she's on a podcast called, I think it's called Breakpoint, where she has a right-leaning co-host, and she's, I think she would say liberal, not progressive. And so they had a conversation about this, and it's just, interesting for me to see what right-wingers talk about, because they're in this idea that, all of their little echo chamber, I got you, boom, really means something. And when you have somebody like, so Charlie Kirk would go on campuses and like gotcha these college kids, and then put clips out. And this is what Tomi Lahren's trying to do, but she has a very intelligent person across the table who doesn't take the bait, and it looks something like this.
So sure,
he's not an American artist. But
Whoops. Sorry,
he's Puerto Rican. That's part of America.
Sorry. I haven't quite figured it all out yet. Okay, let's try this again. And here.
But do you think Bad Bunny is a good choice for the Super Bowl?
I'm not that knowledgeable about him, but it seems fine, and I don't know why it's a big deal. Seems like a great American artist, so sure.
He's not an American artist, but
he's Puerto Rican. That's part of America, dear.
Yeah, you don't think you have any problem with him saying that ICE is? Well, I'm sure you don't. Mother effers and sons of and that he's not going to perform here due to immigration.
America agrees with him on that. Majority of Americans think ICE has gone too far. They've watched videos of 79-year-old business owners be slammed to the ground and their ribs broken by ICE. So I think the American people are probably on board with that message at this point, Tomi.
So first off, she didn't know Puerto Rico is part of America. That's and whenever you in a podcast like that can say, dear, you just been had.
That is like the new version of, F you. If you call somebody dear with that tone, that is yeah.
And I think Crystal Ball set her up by saying, I think intentionally saying great American artist, and had some idea that Tomi
she would bite on that.
Not consider Puerto Rico to be part of America, as Trump once wasn't aware that Puerto Rico was part of America in his first term. So pretty common thing, but that's what worries me about the world, is we have people who live in this echo chamber that's all they're hearing, and oh, he's not American. Oh, he doesn't like ICE, because Bad Bunny has refused now to tour because of threats that ICE would show up at his concerts and arrest people coming to the concert. And so he's become a very controversial figure, but he was on Saturday Night Live last night. And it's this whole thing of, you can talk about ICE with some right wingers and they haven't seen the videos because their echo chamber doesn't show ICE being ridiculously cruel and unconstitutionally illegal in their work. But you come at today's podcast from a different perspective, because you were at a conference this week and found it to be inspirational about where we're going for our future.
Well, I wouldn't go that far. I don't think.
Oh, okay.
I wouldn't say that it's a where we're going. I was around people who, I'll just back up a second and say I was at this conference in Chicago. It was just a day-long thing, probably 80 people in the room representing maybe 50 different community foundations and communities across the country. This conference was done in partnership with a group called the National Civic League, and then the Rhode Island Community Foundation, and then a network of other community foundations. Okay, so small room, but every part of the conversation you're hearing the voices of people who are holding down in their community. I sat at a table with people from Lexington and Milwaukee, There were people from all over the Midwest, the South, the Southeast, a few of us from California, a few people from the Northeast. And every single one of these people was like, hey, like our job is to like open pathways for human beings to actually know each other and talk to each other and find a common path forward in our place. Like we can't really take on the whole big national thing, but in our place, we have enough bandwidth, maybe just maybe, to host and facilitate conversations and work where people are listening to their better angels. And every time, like I got to tell you, I went into the conference thinking, you know, gosh, I've been to a million of these things and I'm kind of going just to go to Chicago more than to go to this conference. And, you know, I'll probably kind of tune out and like do some work where I'm sitting there. I'll hop up and make phone calls. I'll do that kind of thing, but whatever. Every time I thought like, oh, this is, you know, this is going to turn boring, like this wave of inspiration would just come through the room. And I'm telling you, it was sentence after sentence after sentence after speaker after speaker after speaker after speaker, all with this energy around we can reform our places and our governmental structures that support our places moving forward. And they were not like Pollyanna pie in the sky. They were white, like well researched, what like people who've been doing this for decades have had, you know, various levels of success and effect. Like it was so substantive. And I found myself finally, I'm like, oh my God, I feel like I used to feel when I was in church. It was a spiritual connection for me. And then I'm like thinking, what is happening that I'm feeling this wave of inspiration listening to these people? And it's like, it just comes back to, for me, this belief that people, you know, human beings carry life and this spark of the divine, no matter how many layers of burden and trauma and sorrow and all of the pain that may shove that down and cause people to not act out of that place. But every human being does in fact have it. And these are folks who are like out there on the front lines looking for and scanning for who is in touch with that part of themselves that they're able to come into this middle place and be like, hey, let's try to make Lexington better. Like we can't control these other things, but we can do different here. Anyway, it was, I've come to just like, again, say, I think democratic values and democratic practices to me are the closest thing to spiritual actions that I can like imagine on planet Earth.
You were telling me last night that it is bringing heaven to earth, or on earth as it is in heaven.
I mean, if I sort of like merge all my my worlds and experience and which is, I feel like I'm living in a time in my life when I don't have to segment things anymore. It's like things are becoming very integrated in my mind and in my heart. I used to have like my work world, my church world. Now it's just like, you know, kind of, there is no more church world. And my work is like life and just like living forward and trying to make different and better things happen in the place where I live. These things are totally integrated. And I'm like, we used to talk all the time in church about, you know, we'd pray the prayers and like bring fire down, you know, all these like charismatic hand waving kinds of things. But if you stop for a minute and think, if all of those things came true, what evidence would there be in front of you in your day-to-day life? I think what it would look like, heaven on earth, looks like to me, human beings saying to other human beings, you matter. I value the life that's in you. This is really hard, but I want to connect with you. And I want you to feel the same love that I feel. And like, let's find a path forward. I don't know what else like Jesus walking on earth would look like than that.
Yeah. And we used to, you know, what is commonly called the Lord's Prayer, and, you know, on earth as it is in heaven meant like, let's get people saved. And
That's
that was
right.
like, let's forget about everything else. We're just here
That's
to get
right.
people saved. You know, we got to get them saved.
Yeah.
We believed, you know, the Jeremiah 29:7 idea of pray for the welfare of your city, for in its, actually it's pray for the welfare of the city where God sent you, so that in its welfare you'll have your welfare. And so am I hearing that you believe it's kind of this change one person at a time, one little area at a time, and we can stop the fire in the world by putting out little fires around us. And a bunch of people doing that can change what's happening in the world today.
I would say it's a combination of things, but that no matter what, that like what I am around all the time is people who are doing that today in their own communities. And it's not like a handful. It is dozens and dozens, if not hundreds. So if you think of sort of every major, market in the US, I guarantee you there are people doing that work in that community. I don't know how effective it's going to be. I don't know how successful it's going to be, but it's like they're holding the light and working towards finding ways to lift that up. And they're working all of these little groups are kind of working in isolation. I do think that it is incumbent upon us in our own places to be finding that fire, stoking it, like helping to grow that bonfire of like, no, hold on, we're going to reject these, big national trends and things. And because here in our place, it's different. We got to make that bigger. And then we do have to find a way to connect that for there to be some kind of a shift. And I'll use a hippy dippy word, a consciousness shift. I think that kind of action and like forward, like leaning into that really, 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 really matters. And you and I sitting here today have no idea. We can't possibly measure how much of that is happening in the country right now. All we can see is the big, gross national stuff. But I'm just trying to say, hey, see these other things too. And then as this momentum builds, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. We don't know yet. We don't know the outcome. It can start to shift, my view, like public sentiment on the ground is ultimately what changes congressional seats, state office holder, like the electorate has to change for that to start showing. But lagging indicators to me are national dialogue and political trends that comes after and reflects where we've been in the recent past.
Yeah, I totally believe that. And I've talked quite a bit on my social media about when I sit across from people, I find them to be brilliant and wonderful and loving. And then that gets taken away by religion and ideology, or partisan ideology, maybe I should say. We all have ideology, but and so that spark of life has been existent through all of history in the world under horrible, oppressive regimes. So to me, both things can be true, that we can have the spark of life putting out fires in areas and still be headed for some really shitty days ahead. Because our system, I think, has proven resilient through much of life. Oh, your dog just jumped on one of the chairs here. Do you want me to tell him to get down?
I do. That's a.
Hey.
Speaking of bad bunnies, that's a very bad bunny right there.
Good boy. That was a break in the show there, because we've got the new chairs in here and the dog can't lay on them, and he doesn't understand why he can't. You have a bed right over there, bud. You have that nice bed. So anyway, I don't know. Our system has been resilient through 250 years of American history. I don't know if it was prepared for a Donald Trump, and maybe even more so than a Donald Trump, for people that would facilitate Donald Trump around him. And this is kind of a funny video, but also horrifying, when Pete Hegseth, who is our fucking head of our defense department. Oh, sorry, Department of War, as we now call it. I still can't believe this guy is in charge of that. But they brought all of the generals of all of the arms of our military together. And this was one of the things he had to tell them.
Combat formations, or really any formation, and see fat troops. Likewise, it's completely unacceptable to see fat generals and admirals in the halls of the Pentagon and leading commands around the country and the world. It's a bad look. It is bad, and it's not who we are. So whether you're an airborne ranger or a chairborne ranger, a brand new private or a 4-star general, you need to meet the height and weight standards and pass your PT test.
So I made that kind of funny by showing that our commander-in-chief may not fit Pete's standards, but here was this guy telling our military, we're going to have hazing. We're going to basically get rid of women because the standards are going to have to be the male level standards for fitness. We're going to get rid of trans people. We're going to, and any of you in this room, basically, who doesn't agree with that is going to be fired. And Pete just fired the head of the Navy yesterday. So yes, I totally agree that there are people bringing heaven to earth. I don't know if it can change the calamity we're headed towards as a society right now.
I guess I'm not trying to argue that point. It may not, like, I don't know what, like, yeah, obviously, we don't know what's going to happen. But I guess my ultimate source of hope is just human beings being alive. Like, as long as there are people who are walking the planet, there is the hope for that divine connection and appreciation and value for other human life. And so you can't, even if if things just get worse and worse and worse, which I actually do think there are still some guardrails in the US and the democratic system. I do think there are. But let's just assume that we're just crashing up against those as much as possible. I do think public sentiment does move on some of these major, major breaches. It's just, there's a lot of collateral damage in the process. And that in and of itself is devastating, just devastating. But there are people alive that are coming from a place of love. They're like, that is not the democratic system that we signed on to.
Yeah. And the amazing thing is many of our former Christian friends and others don't want a democratic system like we had before.
Right.
That's been one of the real shockers of all of this, is that they're like, no, we want a strong man to come and save us. And to do that, I mean, we talked about Paul Weyrich some on this. Paul Weyrich, who was the political operative at the head of the moral majority, he would literally say democracy is the problem.
Yeah.
Participatory democracy, participatory government is the problem that's keeping us from being a Christian nation.
Yeah, that is really coming into focus. The distinction, we were talking about this last night, between sort of the religious right is now saying we're not a democracy, we're a constitutional republic, and making these distinctions. At this conference I was at in Chicago, there was a communications researcher that has been they're active in civic engagement across the country, and so they've done all this evaluation and testing of like what words trigger right, left, different regions of the country, different age groups, et cetera. And I was a little bit, I guess, behind the times in knowing this, but democracy is now an oppositional word on the center right side of the political aisle. So
Tell me, what does that mean?
I was like, well, this was at my table hearing these words. I'm like, wait, when did the word democracy become something that is not a universally like agreed to word in the US? And it's like, well, in the 2024 election, when the Dems were campaigning so hard, and Vice President Harris about like, hey, this really matters because our democracy is at stake, and democracy meaning that everybody has a say in things, that is now overtly rejected on the political right. So yeah, so that's a major point of clarity and shift, and alarming, of course.
Because on the right wing, the idea of we're not a democracy, we're a constitutional republic, is the idea that not everybody has a say in
That's
how
right.
we're governed,
That's
that
right.
our founding fathers, many people may not know the Senate of our national government when it was created was not an elected body. It was an appointed body. And it was a long time before we started electing senators. And there was this idea of, oh, we'll get to appoint the rich white landowners so that the rabble can't have too much power in what we do. The Electoral College, part of a compromise to make sure the bigger states didn't dominate the smaller states, but it's very clearly written in by Alexander Hamilton that the Electoral College was meant for the power brokers of the country to be able to take a president out of office or take him out of being elected if the rabble elected a guy they didn't like. And that's what it was truly built for. And that's what now this Christian right is saying. We can use all of these tools to impose ourselves on the country as a minority ruling party. And so I love, though, what you're saying in the midst of that is, and I would say, humanity advances 10 steps forward, 7 3/8 steps back. And maybe we're in that back move right now, but amazing things can still happen in the middle of that.
Absolutely.
While being honest
Absolutely.
about what we're facing in the meantime.
Yep.
Like I had
Well-
somebody this week telling me, well, what does it matter that Joe Schmo, believes this stuff on? And I'm like, because a bunch of Joe Schmoes have now put the lives of people in danger that they're discussing out loud. Can we make trans people basically illegal whenever we want to? That our country has gotten there is a fearful
Yeah.
and frightening
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. That's a lot right there. And I mean, I don't want to brush past that point because, well, I will say, let me say it differently. When I hear that, I definitely get very afraid. And I want to like make that not true real quick in my head. So it is hard for me to be exposed to that and not, I mean, it just kind of shuts me down.
Mm.
So that is a really terrifying thought.
Well, and that's the thing. It can't do that. It can't shut us down. We have to still be bright lights in the middle. And I think that's your gift to do in the midst of all of that.
Yeah.
And we have to learn to be able to say there are things that are uncomfortable right now, and we have to fight against them. We have to stand against, our government invading Chicago, which is the plan for this week,
Which, by the way, the coincidence or not of having this conference in Chicago this week, sometimes I'm just like, man, life is just, it is so freaky deaky that in the middle of this national debate of, Trump federalizing the National Guard and sending I'm on this, in downtown Chicago with every other tourist, at the Bean in Millennial Park, taking pictures of myself and my friend in and having so much fun in this beautiful place and walking to Navy Pier and having deep dish pizza and seeing the cheese pull. Like that I'm telling you, like 5 days ago, I was in Chicago and that was my experience. Beautiful, perfect, normal, awesome Chicago. Like not that, I mean, just crazy in the middle of and having this conversation with 80 different communities who had gathered in Chicago to talk about civic engagement. I want to say 2 more things about that. And then I think we should shift to what inspired you this week, because this is sort of big headline or big umbrella conversation here today is like what happened in the week and where our heads at as a result. So 2 more things. One, so democracy is no longer a word that is valued across the political spectrum. The one word that is valued, that remains something that everyone can come up under and be attracted to the glow of this word, is the word community. So just think about that for a second and think about why is that? What does that look like? I'm now worried that word will soon also be taken away.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
Yeah.
please don't take the what, like, can we have one word? Can there be one bridging
Just
word in
one word.
America? Come on. Anyway,
Well, because it reminds me, in church, it's always like, we're family, and to me,
and now it's like
family
family is like, oh, scary.
families are
Like
terrible, terrible
run the
word.
other way when well, it depends on who says it, but
Well,
if it's if a church.
in my therapeutic training world now, we talk about family of origin versus family of choice. And family of choice can be a beautiful term. Family of origin, or the idea of a church being a family, is like, well, it's like a lot of families in America today. We're family as long as we agree on who to vote for and who these other things are. And I love this comment from Amy. I
Yeah.
was in Portland last weekend. It is a pleasant and vibrant city. It's not what
Yeah.
does implied at all.
Yeah. Well, I love trying to, like, I was at the salon yesterday getting a pedicure, and my sweet little pedicurist lady, I know she comes across no shortage of people who have a different worldview than I do. And so I was just like, just like evangelizing on Chicago, like, get there. We have a direct flight. It's so great. There's wonderful, blah, blah, blah. And I was just like enjoying in my own little megaphone kind of way, being able to say, these places are lovely and wonderful. And like what you're hearing is it's just not true. So
Well,
anyway.
I think Trump is going to send in the military to make sure everybody gets the right amount of foam at the top of their latte in Portland, maybe, or
Or
somebody got their beanies ripped off and they're not.
yeah.
Yeah.
Or there's that really famous donut place in Portland that's
Oh, is
like
it?
maybe, making sure you get the right amount of cake in your cake donut. I don't know. They
What's
serve pretty
funny to me
nice.
is, and I kid you not, I have had people in my social media tell me that Portland no longer existed as a city because Antifa burned it down during BLM, right? And they truly believed that Portland was gone. Like, people didn't live there anymore. Trump had told them everybody had moved out, and they truly, and now they're convinced it's this war zone. And I'm like, I thought it didn't exist anymore. So that's what scares me, is there are people that have no idea of what is happening in the country, because the great thing I saw this week was, while one cable network was talking about us bombing another Venezuelan boat and killing however many people this week, on our now declared war against Venezuela fishing boats, Fox News was talking about Barron Trump taking a check to Trump Tower and getting the Secret Service to block off an entire floor for him so he could ply his game on this young woman. Yeah.
Mm-mm. I can't.
I got to show you one more crystal ball Tomi Lahren clip.
Okay.
This one's not quite as funny, but it's just it's interesting to see how it looks. So I just loved this conversation. I recommend everybody go watch this and check out Crystal Ball, because she's brilliant and really good at this.
So this is on her podcast?
Oh, yeah.
You are a big fan of
I'm sorry, what was that?
Sorry. No, go ahead. I'll ask you after.
This is on Tomi Lahren's podcast.
Okay.
Who is the younger looking? I'm not sure what their ages are, but yeah, she's the snarky right winger, and she invited Crystal Ball onto her podcast.
I'm going to talk a little bit about New York City. I don't know if you're a Mamdani fan or not, but you are a big fan of Mamdani?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you are. Okay. So he wants to provide $65 million for gender affirming care. I want to play the clip, and then I want you to tell me why we should be footing the bill for that. Let's take a listen.
It is absolutely disgusting that this federal administration do. They are looking to erase trans folks from the very fabric of this country. And it's up to us to actually show what leadership can look like. And one of the things that we've said beyond saying you're ethnic to racing for LGBTQIA plus enrollers, beyond saying you're going to be able to establish an office of LGBTQIA plus affairs, is also that we're going to provide $65 million of funding for gender-affirming care, the same amount of funding for the federal government to pull out from local providers for that agreement.
So do you think that they should be footing the bill for the gender affirming care?
I mean, Tomi, I think everyone should get healthcare. So yes, I think trans people should get healthcare as well. And what he's talking about is, number one, consistent with New York law, which requires gender affirming care to be provided. And number two, consistent with, basic moral values. Yeah, I think trans people should be able to get healthcare. And one thing I want to say about this, which, personally, I think we should all get healthcare, access to healthcare.
So you think we should pay for everybody's gender transition?
I think that we should pay for gender affirming care, which is medically required for trans people to feel okay. And I think it's disgusting the way that trans people have been turned into scapegoats by this administration, who is more interested in fighting a culture war than really exposing the fact that they are doing the bidding of billionaires, and that those are the people who we really should be upset about, not trans people, not immigrants. But these are all distraction tactics to keep us from talking about the issues that really actually unite Americans.
Yeah. It's good discussion. Interesting that there are many people on the left saying we need to run away from these trans issues and things to try to win elections. And this Mamdani in New York is like, no, he's all in on these progressive issues that really do poll very, very well. That Democrats are still trying to run away from. And so I don't know. I just find that discussion very interesting. It's like, and she would go on to say, it's a principle. I care about people. That's the basic thing of all of my ideology is I care about people.
I think that's really effective. I heard somebody say recently, I'm pro-human, and I thought to myself, why do we have to stop and say, hey, first and foremost, my feet are firmly planted on this idea that I'm for people, but it is actually a really important point. I am for human beings. And, kind of all the way back to the top of this trailhead, and talking about kind of our past religious practice, everything changed for me in my life when I stopped thinking that I needed to convert another person's faith practice to what
I am sorry, but shit, my phone is just going crazy.
Calling emergency services.
My phone is calling 911, I think.
Okay, this is a problem because did you turn it off?
Yeah, we'll see if the police show up at the door. I don't know.
Oh my God.
Siri went wild. So sorry about that.
Oh my God, that's kind of scary because they'll call it 911 will call you back. If you make a 911 call and then you hang up, they will call you back, and you should be able to say, sorry, it was a butt dial.
I was in the middle of a podcast and Siri thought I was calling for help. So
yeah, that's really wild. Okay. Anyway, what I was saying was, because I think in my former Christian practice and my former, sort of the Christian values that got formed in me way deep, way early on, I think there is 100% this connection to pro-human and love and
absolutely
making sacrifice for other people because God loves them so much, and being a part of putting your own life on the line for this other person. Okay. As modeled by Jesus. So that's down deep.
And can I say, I think it's partially because these messages that those people will be left behind and will be taken, those people are going to be marched into hell and we're not. I think that dehumanizes other people.
Yeah. So this, I guess maybe same thing, the things that get layered on top of that core value, when you start to believe that you are responsible for getting another person to think a certain kind of way, then you're any tactic goes, right? Any persuasion goes. I just need this other person to convert to my religion. That evangelicalism, to me, that really is the root of the problem. Do you think?
Yeah. Oh yeah. The idea that my job is to help people understand that they are bad at their core is a terrible way to interrelate to other human beings. That me supporting, even allowing trans people to get gender affirming care, much less have it paid for by the government like every other wealthy country in the world does, is for a Christian, it's like my loving them is not allowing them to get that care. It just takes away our basic human understanding of one another, that everybody doesn't have to look the same, think the same, believe the same, that family is not believing the same, voting the same, but we're taught in evangelicalism, like we are the ones that have all the truth of the universe, and we've got to convince everybody else that they're sinners like we are, so that they will know they have to have our solution to the problem they don't understand that they have. And we call that love. And that's why you see so often out there people saying there is no hatred like Christian love in the world.
Yeah.
And it's very true.
Question. Are you familiar at all with Stoicism?
I am a little bit, but I'm trying to learn more about it, and
I think we need to,
Gnosticism as well. Yeah.
I think we need to unpack that, because I'm hearing a lot about how our nation's founders were Stoics. That this idea that they were like evangelical, whatever, First Baptist Church, Christians, like that's actually doesn't bear out. And so I'm very curious, they're sort of deep philosophical Stoic views like that led to what I do think is a pretty brilliant and ingenious design that is our system of government. Like is I don't know, there's like a wellhead that I think we need to kind of get back to. Hey, we've lost this thread. I'm going to stop talking about my Chicago conference.
No, you're actually in a perfect transitional part there. If I can jump in.
Yeah, go ahead.
Or go ahead and finish if you need to.
Well, I was going to just mention the last, because I thought there was two more things I was going to say about the conference. The second thing was, and this relates to our nation's founders, and how did they come up with this design, and is this. It is absolutely the case that the functioning of our governmental systems is calcified and not reflective of the needs of the communities that government is now entrusted with serving. It is absolutely the case that we need to be rethinking the way we manage the public's business to allow for a much more vibrant, democratic, lowercase d, human-centered approach to agreements, accountability, enforcement, delivering service, we are in a time where we could substantially rethink those governmental systems and be much more responsive and effective in connecting people with the things that bind us together and delivering quality services. That is an exciting thing to me.
Okay. Yeah, you get excited by like water issues and zoning,
just the practice, like it's sort of like the big ideas of democratic processes, and also these issues are so complicated and technical. You do need high quality technical experts, engineers, blah blah blah, but like bringing them together in more participatory ways to allow people to see the complexity of these issues, understand enough to weigh in on things, and trust that their public sector folks are trying to balance all these technical, I think that's pretty cool.
Elaine says, geez, Paul, on Instagram, by the way, our friend. Hi, Elaine. And my friend Kelly, who I met on my trip last Sunday. So thank you all who are joining us on IG as well. I think, so this is something we'll probably have to get into next week, but I have had a series of weeks that have been brutal. I've really struggled to get my homework done. I've had to ask for some accommodations, and really have been kind of searching out what's going on. And some of it may be the, still the cocoon thing we've talked about a lot, that I'm trying to I'm trying to eat my way out of the cocoon so I can emerge a butterfly. I don't know, something, but it's been really rough. And some of it, I did a Substack yesterday about feminine energy and how we all have masculine and feminine energy in us, and we're leaning one way or the other on that spectrum all the time. And by masculine and feminine, I don't mean male and female. I mean what we tend to just gender as these feelings. And some is, some of the battles that I think I've had to fight do pull the masculine energy, the Paul part of me out. And I want to lean into the Avery part a little bit more. And so stepping back from some of those cultural arguments, I think, is a part of what I'm going to do to help with that. But also then trying to believe, okay, what does life look like now? That's really focused. And I think, again, this will probably be our topic next week, but I want to recommend a podcast to people, an episode. I've never heard of the Diary of a CEO before, but Alex O'Connor is one of my favorites, this atheist philosopher. And he was on this 3-hour podcast that was super interesting. And I just have a little, this is kind of their trailer clip, pubbing the episode, but it kind of gives a feel for what I'm trying to dig in for myself these days, what inspired me this week as you were talking about the topic. So check this out.
Lacking purpose, and a lot of people are turning back to religion. There is something going on.
This is about the most important.
You may have missed that clipped at the front. The podcast is about the search for purpose that people are on in the world right now.
Thing that anyone could ever find out about their life. And God has made us for a purpose.
10 young people in the UK believe that their life is lacking purpose, and a lot of people are turning back to religion. There is something going on.
This is about the most important thing that anyone could ever find out about their life. And God has made us for a purpose, and the purpose flows from that meaning.
I kind of reject that because this is a perfect example of a solution being provided without explaining exactly why it provides a solution. And that's what people are doing in religious traditions.
I hard disagree. For me, finding meaning and purpose is like a very practical thing.
And that's what I want to talk about today.
We are joined by an atheist, Christian, and spiritual thinker
to find an answer to the purpose crisis millions are facing today.
One of the reasons that I'm a Christian is because it's the best explanation for the way things are.
But if Christianity were true, we would not expect the kind of suffering that is present in the world.
So I'm very curious. What if I died from cancer at 1 year old?
Oh, that's where it got cut off. Oh, bummer. But that's kind of the discussion. And the psychiatrist there is a really interesting, I encourage that episode. It's actually called The Paperclip Problem. And the idea being, can somebody have the purpose of making paper clips every day and be happy? And I think there is a lot of evidence of this throughout history, where some say even like the slaves of the South, and hear what I'm saying exactly here, they actually were emotionally healthier than their slave owners, that they found a peace in the midst of something horrifying that their slave owners were not able to find, that we can find peace in the midst of the tumult. And it's not this denial evangelical, well, God's in charge, God wants me to be suffering.
Spiritual bypass, right. But
that suffering does bring about change in us that's important to having a purpose in life. And that's an investigation I'm deep into, and it really sucks. It's not pretty, it's not fun. But I do think I am so drawn to it that, there's a real answer in there. And that's kind of what I'm going after right now. And it's helping me pull out a little bit from the deep funk that I've been in.
Well, I think that's a good note. We should drop that that 3-hour podcast in the chat or in the show notes, and this will be our encouragement. You shared this last weekend with me. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet, so this will be my assignment this week. I'm going to listen to it. We're going to talk about it next week. As many others of you as maybe listening to this podcast, join us in listening to this 3 hours of deep debate and reflection and just spiritual pursuit of this question of purpose. And then we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it next week. We'll talk about it as many weeks as we need to get all the way through it. I love the imagery of you eating your way out of a cocoon. So I'm just like, I mean, I can't decide if that's so gross or if it's kind of cool. But anyway, we will feast on this as long as we need to.
Very clever. I see what you did there. We will feast on it. Just, I dropped the YouTube link to that podcast into the chat. We'll put it in the show notes as well for the podcast, and you can check it out. I'll also put a link to the Crystal Ball Tomi Lahren. I find it disturbingly entertaining, to be honest with you.
I may not join you in watching that one. I'm not going to lie, but I will watch the other one.
I think you would love Crystal Ball. And
I'm going to listen to her. She sounds pretty cool. I struggle with the like, so you think this and you think that? Like, I just can't. Oh my gosh. It creates so much anxiety in me.
It's we watched a little bit of the Charlie Kirk Cambridge argument, and that's their tools. So you think a man can have, you think a woman can have a prostate? Like, that's a winning argument in the right wing. And I guess for some of us, it's important to know that's out there, and you have to combat it with like not getting in that mud as Crystal was doing there and just saying, oh, I think everybody should get health care. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
And gender affirming care is health care. So this is a silly issue that we're discussing right now.
Yeah. I have to think about this more as to why I get so enraged. So it's hard for me to like feast on that. I don't want to turn my eyes. I don't want to take it in and consider that this is the mode of persuasion. I just find it so angering. I get really angry really quickly, and I don't have time for that. So it's like I kind of can't look at it.
And I think this is part of what we'll dig into more from this podcast, is that, again, that so a masculine energy is a conquering energy. Like, I have to win, I have to be right, I have to overcome this. A feminine energy is like, I can be powerful and not need to conquer you. I can show you my power without having to beat you down. And so I think in some ways these culture war arguments do pull that masculine energy out of us, because that's what the right wing is bringing. Like, we're going to beat you down, so you have to agree with us. And it takes a lot of work to be able to stay then in that feminine energy and say, I can combat this better without having to win the argument, but by just, and one of the things Crystal Ball said to Tomi in that is like, Zorhan Mamdani is hated, but he doesn't give up his principles to try to tamp that down. He's just saying, here's what I believe. I think it works. Like it, vote for me. Don't like it, don't vote for me. But when we're trying to, I think, do this dance of can we make ourselves palatable to people who don't like us, we lose ourselves a little in it. So anyway, again, going into that, but it does. We have to figure out, how do I stay in this more feminine leaning side of my energy so that I don't feel like I have to win this argument.
Well, I love that concept. And I think talking about that, and, it came up in the conversation with Neil Douglas Klotz that we had about Aramaic Jesus, which, if you didn't watch that show, go back and find it. It's so good. One of the most probably impactful conversations that we had on Ish this year for me in 2025. But he talks about the spirit of Abun, which I'm going to get it wrong, but we always hear about Abba Father, and the Aramaic word Abun is much more of a nurturing concept, which we would affiliate more with feminine. It's not this dad energy. It's this mother nurturing, like everything you were just expressing, Paul. And that's a really important point. And then I think about what are some practical tools, like what, as an individual person, what do you do in your system to be working through the parts that fight again, that do want to stay in that, no, I want to conquer, no, I want to dominate. That's the way I know how to win. Like, how do you work with those parts to let those parts, not let the parts go, but let that energy go, and let them know there's other ways to, I don't know, not like to be safe and
Yeah.
to hold that centered place of love and
And
I
we're
just
probably
said
going
like a
too
bunch of buzzwords.
philosophical for people now, but yeah, it is, you're absolutely right. We've got to make those parts know they're going to be safe, even if we're not fighting,
Yeah.
and in fact, maybe we'll be more safe and more. So
Yeah. Well, it always kind of comes back to sort of like we go this broad concepts, and then it comes back to like your individual system, and how do you take care of your system? What does that mental health look like? Like these things, to me, it's like we're constantly, as a society, like that's kind of the slide that we're always on,
yeah. Well, the power just ran out on my light, so I think that means we should go.
That's a universal sign to wrap it up.
All right, everybody. Thanks. Share this video. Go check out my Substack, Sacred Rebellion, and let's keep doing this thing together. Love it, and love having you all with us. And thanks for just hanging out with us.
Have a great rest of the weekend. We'll see you next week.